Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our last morning of our adventures with Willa and, of course, with Bashar. How many people were here any other day than today? Let me try it the other way around. Is there anybody here who wasn't here? Okay, so a few people. Okay, just to welcome you and welcome all the people from Ustream. I'm April Rochelle from Bashar Communications, and we've been having a lot of fun. We've entered into a new realm of information and experience, a story in a sense, but also something that's also very real in terms of the future. And this has been our opportunity to get more acclimated to these alternative realities and parallel realities. Today's session is entitled The Winter Spirit, and Willa will take us on a journey of understanding more about nature spirits and the actual winter spirit itself that's represented to some degree by the Christmas spirit, I guess, or Santa Claus. So we will see more about that. All right, so here we go. Thank you again, Daryl and Bashar, for taking us on this fun journey. We love it.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to get started, so have a good time and see y'all later. All right, we'll say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, thank you. And once again, thank you for the co-creation of this interaction and the gift that you are giving to us in allowing us to experience each and every one of you as a different facet of the multidimensional crystal of creation, or as Willa might put it, as all the different shards of the shattered mirror. Now, before we facilitate Willa to speak to you about the winter spirit and the elementals, we would like to add a little, well, we'll call it a little bonus monologue. In that she explained to you in the transmission last night of your time the idea of the 5 levels of mastery, being the Cryptic, the Nocturnal, the Shapeshifter, the Sage, and the Wraith, being represented symbolically by the triangle of the mountain of Earth, the connection to Earth, by the wavy line, the Nocturnals, in the night, the secrets, the wavy line of the water, the emotional depths therein, the arch of the sky representing the shapeshifters to represent the changing weather patterns, the idea of the circle representing the sage, which represents space and the void, and the idea of the dot, which represents the wraith, which is spirit and source. There is also a crossover direct analogy between the 5 levels of mastery and the 5 laws. Number 1, you exist. The level of the Cryptic, it is a statement of your existence on Earth, a connection and an expression of your life as it is, in the way that you are familiar. Law number 2, everything is here and now. Thus, in the level of the Nocturnal, connecting into parallel realities, it is the beginning of the awareness that everything exists all at once and that you can connect to those parallel realities. Law number 3, the one is the all are the one, representing the ability of the shapeshifter to call upon those parallel versions of themselves and represent them to others, actually appearing to turn into those other representations and demonstrating that the one is the all and the all are the one, and it is all interchangeable reflections of each other. The 4th law, what you put out is what you get back, being represented by the sage, who can actually call upon those parallel realities and actually transform entire environments into other worlds, other realities, manifest things out of the void, out of apparently thin air, putting out that vibration that allows them to relate to other realities so strongly that they can transmit that vibration to others so that they can perceive the changes in that reality too. And the fifth law, everything changes except the laws, being represented by the Wraith, who thus bridges physical and non-physical reality, matter and spirit, and can call upon the idea of changing the template, the very foundational underlying blueprint of physical reality, to manifest all sorts of transformations, not only in the physical world, but in spirit as well, simultaneously turning physical reality into a living spiritual dream. So the 5 laws correspond very directly to the idea of the expressions of the 5 levels of mastery. Just so you have a more complete picture of the system that is in existence and the knowledge that is expressed 700 years in your future by Willa and many of the hybrids that exist at that time blended into your society on its way to becoming fully the 6th hybrid race. Do you understand? All right. I guess not all of you do. The idea, therefore, is we will now facilitate Willa so that she can discuss with you, share with you the idea of the winter spirit and the elementals as it relates to the concept of your historical understanding and transformation of the winter spirit into the representation, the symbol that you now call Santa Claus. One moment. All right then, good day to you, dearies. How are y'all? Oh, all right. Let us begin this way then, to understand that long ago, even as you count time, humans on your planet had more sensitivity than they express in your contemporary time frame to the idea of nature, when they lived in nature in a more natural way, as you would say, and that they were able to, at least to some degree, sense the presence of the elementals. Now, let us explain before we go on. Elementals can express and have what you would perceive and experience as a physicality of a sort, but many of them are also shapeshifters, and it is from the elementals that the idea of the masteries were developed and that the abilities of the shapeshifters were acquired and learned from them in the beginning. But the idea is that the elementals can manifest themselves in many ways physiologically and sometimes in different forms. But the idea is that they are not exactly physical as you understand physicality. They are part of the nature of your world, of our world, of the earth, what you may call Gaia. They are part of that consciousness expressing itself in a variety of archetypal ways. For consciousness can express itself and divide itself and project itself in a variety of groupings or individualities according to whatever is required by the mass consensus experience. And elementals, for lack of a better term, are like portions of the collective consciousness and the electromagnetheric energy that is associated with the earth, condensing into a form and expression of consciousness that can then sort of wrap itself in the concept of physical reality, but isn't really born in the way you are born as a physical being, nor do they really die in the way that you die as a physical being. They're more like a constant fluctuation of the consciousness that is associated collectively with your world, from the world, of the world, by the world. And they can, perhaps, again, more aptly, like bubbles in a boiling pot, pop up here and there, using the medium of the water, the electromagnetheric energy, to temporarily form the idea of a consolidated focal point that you would recognize in the water as a bubble, but recognize in nature as an elemental. This is why many of them can exist for many hundreds of years, even thousands of years of your time of counting. But the idea is that when they come into being and when they transition into other states, it is more like what the Bashar civilization now experiences, where they are a consolidation very rapidly, where poof, as you say, they are there, and poof, as you say, they are gone, even though they may linger for a long time. But that consciousness can reform itself like clay, like being molded into other forms, and express itself. And so elementals can, in that sense, experience a shift of identities in much the same way that you might allow more of your true being to come through you from time to time, saying that you are truly a different person now, but still recognize a connection, a continuity that you may create. Well, elementals have a little bit less of that continuity. They can flow and change in form and become this and that and appear and disappear in a variety of ways, but they experience that continuity in a very different way than you do. Now that you sort of have a little bit of a picture of the fact that they are certainly far more ephemeral than you're used to seeing in a being that you relate to, in those past times of your counting, humans were more sensitive and more capable of recognizing that elementals existed and sometimes could actually interact with them in a variety of ways. And over time, as your civilization changed and focused on different things, you became less and less aware of the elementals as an actual presence that you could interact with, and many of them became what you would call mythologized and told in your stories in a variety of ways. And sometimes there were different interpretations about what they could do or what they were all about, some of which remained relatively accurate according to their temperaments, and some of which really spun into stories that almost have nothing at all to do with what they do and who they are and how they live. Nevertheless, you retain the idea of the elementals in your stories enough, sufficiently enough, that you never really lost sight of the fact that you are on some level aware that there are other levels of reality even within your own, other divisions of consciousness, even within what you call the world, and that there are many things that are invisible to you that are around you all the time. But now in this day and age, as you call your contemporary time of transformation, there is the ability to regain those senses again, to expand your senses to the point where you can begin, and have begun in many cases, to know that those elementals do exist among you, have their own reality, their own world, in a sense, blended in, intermingled, intertwined with your own. And bit by bit, as you expand your consciousness and move down through your timeline further and further, you will begin to experience that these beings still do exist, and they will make themselves known to you in a variety of ways as you become more aware and more capable of perceiving and interacting with them. One in particular that we will address this day of your time is what is typically referred to as the winter spirit. Now, it does have a name of old, an ancient name. And in the area in which I live, even though this winter spirit can appear in many different ways around the world in different cultures, in my area of what you would call the Ireland in your time, you will find that it is known by an ancient name of Cernunnos. Cernunnos. This being is generally described as having elements of a human form, but also elements of animal form, a kind of face that might be reminiscent of what you would call a blend of human and elk, and it does have the expression of large elk-like antlers, and it does have the expression of the cloven hooves, and it does have certain other elements to it that would be considered sort of fawn-like, or of a nature in the sense of what the being you know as Pan, or Puck in that sense. But it is a rather large elemental because its energy is very great, and it represents the season itself. And its focal point is the winter solstice that you are about to experience in your timeline. But the idea of kernos is that it is, to use an ancient term, a kind of a karmic elemental. It is a fourth law elemental, specifically geared to that vibration of what you put out is what you get back. It is that kind of a reflective elemental. And in ancient times, even ancient to you, it expressed this in the way that those that were positive to it, kind to it, loving to it, would receive that in return. But those that were of foul heart within themselves and mean disposition would find that reflected back to them by this fourth law elemental in a variety of ways that represented the concept that became known to you as karma. Because it is simply, again, the fourth law of what you put out is what you get back. And this being can amplify, magnify, and reflect that to you once you engage within that level of consciousness with it. Over time, as you began to lose the sense of the being itself, the winter spirit in its original form, its original expression, as kernos, and you drifted away from your knowledge that these beings existed among you, and it began to fade back into its own reality to the point where you could no longer really perceive it in the same way that your ancestors did. But remembering that such encounters did occur, you began to weave different kinds of expressions or different kinds of stories about this being. One of the first that you created was the idea of splitting the being in two, to recognize its positive side and recognize its negative side. Now, again, we remind you that when we talk about the idea of positive and negative, like the Bashar, this is not a value judgment, but it is simply a description of the mechanics of positive energy being that which integrates and expands, and negative energy being that which segregates and disconnects in experience. But the idea is that this then became separated into two different beings. Still the original idea of the winter spirit, but then the negative side was embodied in a concept and another being altogether that was given the antlers in the form of horns, still had the cloven hooves, still had some animal aspects to its features, but this being was given a new name, and that name was Krampus. Krampus then became the embodiment of the idea of the negative side, while the positive side was then begun to be associated with other things that came into your society, religious ideas, other forms of spiritual expression. And in the idea of your European area, you will find that it began to be associated with the concept of saints, and in particular the idea of the being you know as Saint Niklaus. But having been divided in this way, it was also then Krampus being associated with the negative polarity of those that believed in the idea of heaven and hell. And thus Krampus also became the embodiment of the devil in that way. For it had the cloven hooves and it had the horns. The idea also is that it was a being of mischief in that sense, in the negative way, reflecting the negativity. But this also continued to evolve in the idea becoming a little bit more benign in what became Sinterklaas, where Krampus began to be forgotten. And again, the idea of forming the list and checking it twice to find out who's naughty and find out who's nice. So that became simply an idea that evolved into, or shall we say devolved into, a simple list, a checklist of who was either a good boy or a good girl or a bad boy or a bad girl. Allowing the idea to come into some other religious form and go in a different direction and focus on the idea of the giving of gifts and the giving of presents, which originally was the concept of simply making loving offerings to the original Kerninos, winter spirit, and receiving in return the idea of also gifts and offerings to carry beings through the winter, to help support them through the ice and the snow, because the winter spirit in a sense, could also be represented of that which could control those things, those realities, and allow there to be an easing of those elements that you might experience in the winter time in harsh climes. But understand that there is still that remnant of making those offerings, because even to this day, many of you will leave milk and cookies for Santa Claus. Now, of course, in your society, it has continued to evolve into something, of course, that you would consider to be quite commercial. For you understand that the Santa Claus you know today is purely an invention in terms of the look, in terms of what it does and how it does it. But it still contains that seed and it contains that remnant. It contains, even as a mythology, the connection all the way back to the winter spirit, who, when offered the idea of gifts, would give gifts in return, and who, when presented with foul temperament, would offer foul storms in return. So you can see through the progression of forgetting your connection to nature and no longer being able to interact directly with the winter spirit in the ways of old, that you have allowed this to become something which is a surface feature only, a mythology, a presentation that serves you in the way that your society is now structured. But as you go through the transformations that you are now going through in your society, and you open up to the idea that your senses can expand and begin to interact once again with the heretofore invisible that's always around you, of other realities and other levels of consciousness within the earth itself, you will begin to honor again, you will begin to own again, you will begin to experience again those interactions. But I will tell you, when you come upon Kernanos, you will find that it will be a very powerful energy. For again, it is the energy itself of winter, the energy itself of the solstice, and that crossing threshold will become more and more meaningful to many of you as you advance in your development toward the idea of the sixth hybrid race. For in our time, upline 700 years from you, in what you call your future, Kernanos is a being that we interact with all the time. It is a presence that we can actually experience in a very physical way, as with many of the other elementals. What you may call the pukas and the sylphs and the gnomes and the silkies and many other beings that exist in different rarefied realms and express themselves as shapeshifters, taking on different forms to represent the kind of energies that they interact with in your reality. They are symbolic beings that can physicalize themselves, archetypal energies and archetypal consciousnesses that can actually physicalize themselves and take on very unusual forms that you would think to be physically impossible. But the only reason they are possible is because they are not physical in the way that you are, though they can express themselves in a very physical and solid way, sufficient enough to interact with them in the physical plane. So these elementals, being that nature, will also be beneficial for reminding you of your own nature and that you are truly walking in a dream, that physical reality is a dream and another expression of a greater archetype of the Gaia collective consciousness energy, of which you are also an expression, even though you express it in a more physicalized way. So as you reclaim your own natural selves, you will also reclaim and express a part of your being and a part of your consciousness that is also vibrationally connected to the elementals. For you contain that as well. For you contain everything that exists in nature. And everything is a symbol and a reflection and a shard of that shattered mirror that has broken into an infinite number of parts and reflect back to you in an infinite number of ways all the different aspects that you are, that you can vibrate in harmony with, that you can adapt and adopt into yourselves to express yourselves as the greater being as you walk through the dream of physical life. Is what we're saying making some sense to you? Yes. All right. Therefore, at this time, either I or the Bashar will be happy to interact with each and every one of you if you have any particular thing that you would like to chat about today. Please, by all means, You may proceed.
Hello, Willa.
And good day, Cookie.
I used to have these dreams where I would go into these green, the color green pools. The water was just like the green on the background there, and then they became like caves, and then I would see doors, green doors opening in trees. I wonder if you have anything to say about that. Is there any significance to that dream?
This is to some degree what we were discussing last night of your time, as you understand your time. The idea of connecting cryptically to nature and opening those doors of communication to things that you don't necessarily think are capable of communicating with you, such as the trees. So it's making a connection on a higher level, vibrationally speaking, to other kinds of beings and other expressions of beings in nature with whom you can learn to communicate and receive information that can serve you in your life. You understand? Going deep within yourself is what is symbolized by the cave within you. And finding the trees within is what symbolizes your connection to nature and your ability to open those doors to other realms and see and enter those realms vibrationally so that you can match the frequencies that give you more ability to receive information from all beings and all reflections in nature. That is how we would see that particular experience for you. Does that help you?
Yes, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Is there anything else then?
No, thank you.
All right. Are you clapping for yourselves then? You did a good job. Is that what you're doing? All right.
Hi, dear one.
And to you, good day to you.
Celebrate talking to you.
And you as well.
Thank you. I was curious, you were talking about elemental beings, and I think you did that in a very coherent way that I'll continue to review.
Well, all right. Thank you so very much. It's nice to know that one can be coherent.
Thank you. I was interested to also ask, just because I was excited to ask, is there dreamer dolphins or dolphin consciousness in upline in your timeline?
Yes, of course there are. There are dreamer dolphins and we interact with them as well.
How do they express themselves differently to how they do in our current Earth timeline?
Well, they don't really express themselves so much differently as we are simply capable of clear communication with them and understand them fully.
Oh, beautiful.
So it's about the practice that you're doing to learn how to receive and get into a telepathic contact with them by matching those frequencies so that you can also practice understanding the deeper conversations that are going on. Because there are many levels to a dolphin and a whale conversation, more than just what you might understand on the surface. They live in the depths of the sea, and because they live in those depths, and because gravity to them is not what it is to you, you find that their way of communicating actually contains many different levels and operates on many different levels and communicates different information the deeper you go. So you need to learn to understand how to dive deeper in your connections with them so that you can get the fullness of the communication that they are sharing with you. But they understand now in your time frame that they need to deliver the first layer so that you can begin to sensitize yourself to their frequency. And as you become more accomplished at that, they will also then give off vibrations that allow you to go deeper and deeper into the conversation. And especially with the dreamer dolphins, then until you are so deep in the conversation that you are dreaming together with them and don't know whether they are the human and you are the dolphin, or they are the dolphin and you are the human, it can become a real bonding experience, and it is something that we enjoy in our time.
That sounds wonderful.
It is.
And by going
Or I would not have described it to you that way.
Yeah, I really appreciate you describing that. By going deeper, are you saying going deeper into yourself?
Of course, that's always
not
the
into
key.
the ocean, or both, like.
Again, anything external is the symbol of the internal.
Yeah.
The deeper you go within your own self, the deeper you will go in the consciousness of the reality that appears to be around you, but which you know is actually within.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing around you. That's a projection, it's a reflection, it's an illusion. It's all within you.
You told me yesterday to have a holistic. Well, I interpreted it to have a holistic approach. So
Yes.
yeah.
Because the holistic view contains all the details that can simply fall into place automatically as they arrange themselves within and take their cue from the holistic view. Rather than working the details and trying to figure out where they fit, allow the template of the holistic view to simply arrange them as befits the whole. Then everything will fall into place quite nicely, quite neatly. It's really no different than understanding a recipe. For the idea is that in the beginning, if you are cooking, you may focus on the ingredients individually. But as you become a master chef, you understand that you have the end result already pictured in mind, and everything sort of happens automatically to manifest that holistic experience.
Okay, so the state of being is in mind and then it holistically manifests?
The state of being itself contains all of the detailed
It's
vibrations.
inherent within it. Yeah.
And it is that energy that encourages everything to then come together in the proper way.
Oh, fantastic.
That's why we call you all cookies.
Okay.
Although we understand that some of you are sort of half-baked.
Okay. Wow. And I appreciate hearing that analogy from that perspective too, because last night I heard the perspective that you were saying that we were sweet just from our presence alone or the awareness of it, but then also from the perspective of baking.
Yes. You are all baking yourselves in the oven of consciousness.
Lovely. That's very sweet, and thank you so much for chatting with me today.
It is our pleasure to do so. Thank you also for the chat.
Good day.
And a good day to you.
Bye.
Hello.
Good day to you, dearie.
Thank you for sharing your world with us. And
Well, it is your world too. We're just a little farther up line than you.
that's correct. May I speak to Bashar?
Certainly you may. Would you give us a moment then?
Sure.
All right, good day to you.
Hello. I have been struggling with the belief that if I follow my highest excitement, if I express my talent,
Yes.
I will be attacked, humiliated, rejected by the group.
Then you don't have a clear definition of excitement. For how can a true definition of excitement contain those things? You have a different definition, and it's not the definition of excitement. So you need more precision and more clarity about your definition of excitement so that you can understand that when you are truly aligned with that vibration, things that are not compatible with that vibration simply cannot be experienced. This is just physics.
Oh.
So you need clarification of your definition so that you have an accurate definition of excitement instead of something different.
And
Does that make sense to you?
It does.
All right.
Just
And so what is the belief? And why are you afraid that someone might say, oh, well, by being yourself, we don't like you? Who cares?
the belief
What do they have
is-
to do with you?
That's correct. If I'm happy, I'll be
Yes.
punished.
If you are happy, you will be punished.
Yes.
Again, not a definition of happiness, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Is it? Is a definition of happiness a state of being in which you get punished? Do you actually have those contradictory beliefs locked together?
If I'm in a state of happiness, which can attract other people to attack me.
No. You see, you're not getting the point.
Right.
A state of happiness cannot attract people to do something that is not reflective of a state of happiness. People may do that, but it's not that the state of happiness attracted that.
Huh.
Do
Okay.
you understand?
Yes.
And the idea is that if you are creating a state of happiness and people choose to do that, what do you care? Because you're in a state of happiness. So why would you match the vibration they're offering you and come out of your state of happiness to match the vibration of their misery? Why would you choose to do that?
I don't know why I choose to do that.
Of course you choose to do that. I'm not saying you choose it consciously, But the only way you can leave one state of being is to choose another. It doesn't automatically go away. When you choose a state of being, that state of being is there. If it changes, you're choosing on some level, consciously or unconsciously, through your belief system, to believe you need to change it to something else.
Right.
So this calls for awareness of self, knowing yourself, being clear in your discernment of your belief systems and how your belief systems that you're holding on to are changing your state in a way that you don't prefer. That's why it's so important to get in touch with what those beliefs are and identify them consciously. Because if they remain unconscious, you have nothing to work with. You don't know what's going on, and it appears as if you're not choosing to change your state of being when you are by holding on to beliefs that don't work for you. But when you identify them consciously, then you have something to work with because you can see what the belief is that you are buying into that convinces you to change your state of being from something you prefer to something that you don't.
Right.
You find the logic in the negative belief. But you don't have to buy into that logic once you are aware of what it is, because once you are aware of what it is, it doesn't appear logical anymore. It appears illogical and nonsensical. It doesn't make sense when you shine the spotlight on it. And as soon as it doesn't make sense, it's gone. You don't hold on to things that don't make sense. Therefore, when a belief is exposed in your consciousness and it no longer seems to make sense, that's the end of the process of letting it go, not the beginning of the process of letting it go. You instantly drop things that don't make sense. Now, if you keep doing the same thing, you haven't found the core belief. You need to keep digging. Do you understand?
Yes,
Is this helping you?
very much.
But it all comes down to clarity of definition and knowing yourself and identifying those beliefs as clearly and precisely as you possibly can. Then you have something to work with. Then you know that you're in charge.
Yes.
Is this making some sense?
Yes, it does.
Is this helping enough?
I think.
Or is there something else you want to discuss about this?
Let me just make sure that I get it correctly.
By
It
all
means
means.
that I do not have to feel guilty when another person is not feeling well. I do not have to match
you
their
don't.
level of
No,
experience.
you don't. And in fact, if you match their level, all you're doing is reinforcing that negative vibration for yourself and for them, instead of remaining in a vibration that would actually be capable of helping them should they choose to match yours.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually removing their ability to have an option to change by matching their frequency.
Oh,
You understand?
yes.
You are depriving them of that option. Be the living example of the state of being you prefer. And even if someone else doesn't choose to match your frequency and change themselves in a more positive way, you have at least assisted them and been of help to them by being an example to them of a choice they could make. But if you don't do that, you're not giving them any choice.
Thank you so much.
Does that help you?
That's.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And you good day.
What is another universe like?
Well, there are an infinite number of them. We recently described one that we have termed the inside-out universe. Have you heard that description?
Oh,
No?
no.
Let me describe it this way. We have recently and are still exploring the inside-out universe. Well, let me start with what you consider to be normal.
Okay.
You have what appears to be, it isn't, but what appears to be empty space
Mm-hmm.
in which there are stars and planets
Yeah.
in general.
Mhm.
The inside-out universe, there is no empty space in the area you would consider to be empty space. It is full of a kind of heavy gravitational fluid. But there are bubbles, very large bubbles and small bubbles in that fluid. The gravitational fluid builds up and compacts in such a way as to create the skin of the bubble, and it is inside the bubble, which has the empty space, and the inside surface of the bubble is where beings can live.
Oh,
Instead of on the surface of a ball in empty space, they are on the inner surface of a bubble in space that is full.
wow.
Now, the one so far that we are dealing with, because of course there are many different kinds of beings that can exist in such a universe, but the ones that we are dealing with so far, the beings themselves on the inside of their bubble are actually themselves also spherical.
Oh,
Although they have tentacles that can stretch out and help motivate them, move them around, balance them, support them, but they can also retract those tentacles so that they are a pure sphere so they can roll around.
oh my
That's
God.
their mode of transportation. And all of their structures, in a sense, are tubular so that they can move through those tubular hallways in a variety of ways. Now, at the center of that empty bubble is not exactly what you would call a star, but something that shifts back and forth and fluctuates very rapidly back and forth in a variety of ways between what you might colloquially refer to as a black hole and a white hole. And this exerts the idea of a kind of outward pressure that they would consider day, and then an inward pressure that they would consider night. That's how they experience it, but it looks nothing at all like your day or your night. It is a fascinating universe that we have begun to explore and are still learning much about.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yes, it is.
Another question.
Yes.
What is it like to live out your life on like a mothership?
Well, it depends, but it can be quite fascinating.
Such as like you born and then you grow up and
Yes, there are actually very few of us that actually live our entire lives on a mothership. We do visit our own planet and other planets as well.
but you
There
live
are a
there.
few beings that have chosen to do what you are saying, and for them it is a fascinating way to live because they get to go constantly visiting other realities, other worlds. They get to explore in a variety of ways, and they get to also participate in communication in a variety of different ways with the mothership itself, because remember, our ships are sentient.
Yeah. Wow.
So it can be experienced in a number of different ways depending upon the theme that the individual is exploring by choosing that particular path.
So it's a choice.
Of course it's a choice. No one is forced to stay aboard the mothership. No, you can't come down to this planet. You have to stay on the mothership because you've been a naughty girl.
So it's fascinating for them. It's fun for them. It's
Of course. Please remember, in our society, we don't do anything that isn't.
isn't fun.
Yes, that isn't representative of our highest passion. We live on pure synchronism. Everyone is exactly where they need to be, exactly when they need to be there, interacting with exactly whom they need to interact with, exactly when, how, where, and so forth. That's pure synchronism. Everything is in orchestration, and we know that it is, so we experience it as such more consciously than many of you do, even though it's also always synchronistically in orchestration for you as well, but most of you are just becoming aware of that in a more conscious way. But we're fully aware of that.
Okay. So how about like when Bashar goes and
When
visit?
me,
when
yes.
you go and visit the mothership, like how long do you stay there for a visit in our time? Like how
Well,
many
it
days?
depends
Like
on what business I have there.
oh,
I could be there for a few moments. I could be there for days. The longest I've been on any one mothership is about what you would consider to be 3 months at a time before going off and doing other things. Now, there are those that I am in contact with that have been on the mothership for what you would consider to be years.
oh, wow. So it's never boring.
Why would it be? There's no such thing as a boring situation. There are only bored minds.
Oh.
Ooh.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes. It's fascinating. Thank you, Bashar.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I have a question about the animals. I don't know if you or Willa want to take this.
Oh, all right.
My
The
question-
animals on your planet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and specifically the way that we treat our animals here with such.
Well, you don't have to be a generalist.
Yeah.
Many people on your planet treat animals quite well.
Right. But we still have a lot of
Yes.
major problems with extinction, specifically.
Yes.
Zoos that
Yes,
are
yes, yes.
ill-equipped.
Yes.
The
So
industrial
what do you
farming
want to do
complex.
about all of that?
Well,
What are you doing
well,
about all of that?
I became a vegetarian to stop
Yes.
buying into that
All right, what
reality.
else are you doing? Remember, it's your planet.
Well, I feel a calling to work in dog rehab. That's
All
something that
right.
I'm trying to work towards right now.
You are trying.
I know I shouldn't have said that. I know I shouldn't have said trying.
You are moving in that direction.
Yes.
You are acting on your highest passion to the best you are able with no insistence on a particular outcome.
Yeah, I think I have been doing that.
All right.
It's definitely given me some turns that I wasn't expecting, but
Well,
no
congratulations.
expectations, right?
Yes.
Right. So
No insistences.
no insistences. So
And
I'm
you can
getting there in
certainly
a roundabout
expect
way.
the unexpected.
Surely. Yeah, I was working in animal services for a while, and
Yes.
I that really grounded me in the idea
All
that
right.
this is what I wanted to do.
So, is there more that you would like to be doing?
Well, I'd like to have a rehab facility to,
Besides that, because you already mentioned that.
well, aside from that,
Is there more that you're passionate about doing with respect to the improvement of the relations and reflections of humans and animals on your planet? Use your imagination. How far do you want to go with this?
well, I guess I need to consider more of that. I don't know
Well,
if
you
I
don't
have.
need to, but are you passionate about doing so? Are there other ways you would like to express the idea of those relationships in a more positive way?
I suppose there are. I don't know that I've considered them yet.
All right. Well, where's your imagination? Where's your passion?
It's asleep.
Well, wake it up.
Right, right.
Would you like to buy an alarm clock for it?
I might need one. You know, I don't, I guess I feel at a loss for the things that perhaps I could do to improve
Well,
the
if you
situation
feel at a
for the animals
loss,
here.
then all you're doing is not exercising your imagination to the degree that you could be. And what is the resistance there? Do you not believe that you have the ability to go farther than you are?
Perhaps.
Why? If you're
I
passionate
don't know.
about
I know better.
something,
I am very passionate about it.
but obviously you feel you could be passionate
Feel
in a
like-
variety of different ways that you're not being. So the question again comes back to why? Are you not being passionate in all the ways that you can?
I don't know.
Sure you do. You can't get away that easy.
It's feel feel like the brakes were hit, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's resistance. But resistance comes from belief systems within you. So what
Right.
beliefs are causing the resistance? To put it in a simple term, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid will happen if you really expand yourself in all the ways that you really would prefer to express this idea? Come on, you can be honest.
What am I afraid
Yes,
of?
what are you
I'm
afraid will happen?
I guess stability, you know,
Stability.
stability.
In what sense do you mean that?
Financial or housing.
Oh, here we go with the focus again.
Yeah. Okay. So of course you're concerned about, you know, making $1 today so that you can.
I'm not concerned about making
You're
it all.
not. Of course you're not.
But you obviously are.
Yes.
So you don't have a broad enough
sometimes.
definition of abundance then?
You know, and I always thought that I did too, because I've always been
And
taken
yet
care
you're
of.
the one that just said stability and finance
Right.
and
Right.
so on and so on. So have you just revealed the truth of the beliefs you're holding on to yourself?
Yeah.
All right. Well, very
certainly
good.
in there.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Don't judge yourself for doing it.
All right. I mean, if I were a billionaire, I'd have funds going. I'd be
You
out there.
are
I'd be,
a billionaire.
I am a billionaire.
In all forms of abundance that are relevant for you. You are as wealthy as anyone if you attract the forms of abundance that are relative and relevant for you that allow you to do what you need to do when you need to do it. You are equally wealthy with everyone because the only criteria to being wealthy, so to speak, or being abundant is the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it, not what form the abundance comes in.
Right.
So you could have very little money compared to someone else, but you will be able to do anything you need to do, which makes you just as abundant. You need to look at
Right,
these things through
right.
different definitions. Otherwise, you're going to hamstring and restrict yourself to things that don't work for you necessarily all the time.
Right.
And therefore, you're going to shut the doors on other forms of abundance that could be coming to you that could work for you and allow you to get what you need when you need to. So you need to
and I
open
know
those doors.
this.
Well, knowing, again, is in the behavior.
Oh.
It can't just be an intellectual understanding. What you know to be true, you do. It's in your body language. It's in your behavior. Because if I said, would you please take 3 steps this way and then 3 steps back, you wouldn't sit there and go, well, let me see if I believe if I can do that. Let me think about that. Am I sure? Am I afraid if I take 3? You wouldn't sit there and analyze. You would just do it and then do it again because you know you can do it. Action and knowing are synonymous.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's not in your behavior, you don't really know it. It's not, as you would say, in your bones.
Okay.
So make it real for yourself by putting it out there. Don't be afraid to stretch yourself and express it in whatever ways are truly representative of all the ways that you can be expressing your passion, and don't hamstring yourself by consolidating or contracting or compressing your definitions down so narrowly that they don't work for you. Remember that you're always being unconditionally supported, but you will be unconditionally supported by buying into negative beliefs just as much as you'll be unconditionally supported buying into positive ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because creation doesn't care which ones you choose because you are unconditionally supported. So it's not going to contradict you. If you're going to hold on to a negative fear-based belief, it's going to say, okay, I'll support you in that.
Mm-hmm.
But likewise, if you say, I'm going to hold on to this positive belief, it's going to say, okay, I'll support you in that. It's not going to contradict you. That's not how it's designed. It's
Right.
designed to support you in whatever you decide is true for you. Yes?
Yes.
That's why you have the freedom to choose. Otherwise, if it was going to contradict you, there would be no point in giving you any choice at all. You would just be a bunch of robots following a program. And you wouldn't even know that you were a robot following a program. Because you wouldn't have the need to have the awareness that you were a robot following a program, because that would imply that you might have a choice not to.
Right.
So since you do have a choice not to follow a program, you're not a robot. And that means that nothing in creation is going to contradict you when you decide what's true for you.
I have some dreaming to do.
Yes, you do. You need to dream bigger.
I
And
do.
you need to dream yourself into that dream. Because you are bigger than you think you are.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a role that I could play here on Earth to help guide.
Yes. And allow the animals to help you. Because they are bigger than they appear to be.
Oh, absolutely.
So form dialogues and vibrational interactions with them in such a way that they can impress upon you how to claim your own nature in a bigger way.
That's something I can do with just my dog that I share my life with.
You can start
Just
there,
start there and
but I wouldn't limit it to that
Ah.
necessarily.
right. Well, I like to talk to the animals, the
Then
birds.
it's not just about talking to them. It's about listening to them.
Oh, yeah,
Yes?
right.
Yes, many people on your planet go, oh yes, I can talk to animals. But how many of you actually listen to what they're really saying? You might sometimes think you know what they're saying, but many times that's not what they're really saying.
Well, I don't know what they're saying. I just feel an energy or a vibration.
Yes, well, that's the beginning of knowing what they're actually saying, because there is a way to understand that as a language, so to speak.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Well, okay. That's definitely something that I want to go further in.
Then I would suggest that you start practicing that, and it will expand your horizons to the point where you might begin to loosen your hold on the definitions that you're using and let them also expand so that you experience the expansion in your life in the direction of your passion.
Well, thank you, Bashar. That's great. Great advice. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
Appreciate it.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you for being here. I actually would like to speak with Willa.
All right.
If that's okay.
One moment. Of course it's okay. One moment. What's on your mind?
Hi. So I have a couple questions. The
That
first,
itself sounded like a question. I have a couple of questions.
is it okay if I have a couple of questions?
There's another question. You've already asked
Okay.
two.
Okay,
Do you have
great,
two more?
okay. First, I'm a poet and a dancer, and I've been exploring these realms for a long time.
Sounds very exciting then, dear.
It is very exciting, yes. And in recent years, with my dance, I have gone into trance states and experienced what I consider to be automatic dancing.
Well, yes, that's also a form of what you people would call channeling.
Right.
Anytime you are in the state of doing what you love to do, you're in a channeling state.
Cool. Yeah, and
If that's the temperature that happens, then so be it.
So with regard to automatic dancing, I'm wondering, so far it's only happened in very particular circumstances.
And what particular circumstances would those be?
It tends to be in sort of group communal ritual dance settings at night.
All right, then. Is there some other way you would prefer it to be?
I guess as much as that's my preferred mode of experiencing that, it doesn't feel like I can integrate that as frequently into my life right now. And
Why? There are always other beings that are willing to dance with you. It doesn't matter whether you can see them or not.
Good point. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Sometimes I will actually make a good point. Nice to know that you picked up on it.
In regard to this thread as well, I'm wondering specifically about the positions my body goes into when I'm in this state. And
yes. Well, it will act as a kind of antenna, and it will express the flow of energy through itself in a variety of ways. As sometimes you see within the channel, when especially the Bashar is channeling through, you will find that the body will express different motions that are sometimes representative of different flows of energy that aren't translating into your language.
Right.
So it will flow the energy through itself and express the idea as a different form of language.
That's how I've perceived it so far.
Well,
but
then why did you need to ask about that?
Well, because I don't remember what I did. I have a hard time recreating it, specifically mudras.
Why would you want to
things.
recreate the same thing? Why not allow yourself to create something new? What reason is there to go back? You
Right.
have on your planet a group of individuals called Zen monks, and they say you cannot step in the same river twice. It's always flowing. Don't try to recreate. You can't.
Okay.
It will always be new, even if it seems very similar. It is always new because you're never the same person, dear.
Right.
You never will be. So how can you, being a different person, create exactly the same thing that another person created? Because you were another person then. Wasn't really the you are now.
Right.
So why would you try to do that? Why not just go forward and see what new things you create as the new you? Because they will be exactly what the new you needs to create.
Okay.
Instead of creating things that are no longer relevant for the you that you are at that time.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you? Do you
It
get what
does.
I'm saying?
It does. Yes, absolutely. And
Because if you're a dancer, I would think you wouldn't want to be that rigid, that
Absolutely.
inflexible.
Absolutely. And
All
I
right,
think
then.
I've been able to
The
enter.
process itself, remember, is a dance.
Yes.
So be fluid in the
Yes.
process
Oh.
as you are in the dance itself.
That's very good for me to hear, because my other question was
Yes.
going to be, and maybe this is more one for Bashar, but it's with regard to having too many passions and excitements.
There's no such thing, dear.
Okay.
You can have a lot of different expressions of your passion, and that's all right. But if you really are living in your passion, you're going to find that the tool of synchronicity is going to arrange them in the order in which they need to be done and in the time in which they need to be done. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not using the tool. You're not allowing the tool to show you the timing of the thing, for it'll automatically organize it for you. You don't have to push yourself. You just
Okay.
have to go with the flow.
Okay.
But they can be different expressions of your passion.
Okay.
Yes?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. May I ask another question?
You know what we're going to say to that then, don't you? That was a question you just asked. You don't need to ask if you can
Okay.
ask, dear.
Okay.
Just ask.
I'm curious about how you
One
achieved.
moment, please. We picked up something from someone in your audience. They were thinking that we might actually sound like someone called Mrs. Doubtfire. Who would that be then?
Doubtfire.
Oh, never mind. Please proceed.
Yeah, I could see that. So, with regard to how you achieved your 5 levels of mastery, did you do that in one single incarnation?
Well, yes, dear.
Okay.
It can be done.
Okay.
It can take a while, but it can be done. Some do and some don't. It's not a path for everyone, but it can be done, and yes.
Okay. And then I have one final question, and I'll just ask it. I'm not sure if it will be able to be answered, but my younger
You
brother.
sure do like preambles, don't
I really
you?
do. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, then. What is it?
My youngest brother and I seem to have a connection that seems to be somehow related to the Pleiadian energy. And I'm wondering if you have any clue about that. It's just something I'm curious about.
Well, how do you feel that that connection serves you then? Because that's what you're doing. You're making a connection to that energy. Because you feel that with your belief system, it's the energy that serves to reflect to you what you need to learn about yourself. Yes? So what do they represent to you then? What is your idea of that energy when you use those words? For we understand beings from the Pleiades, but we have our own way of understanding them. What do they mean to you?
So much. I don't even know that I can sum it up in
All
one
right.
sentence, but
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to sum it up at all if you understand the feeling and you understand how to translate it for yourself as to what meaning you have given that connection and know how to use it in your life. How do you use it in your life then?
compassion, love. Also, I feel like understanding my calling as being related to expressing spirit as opposed to being within a particular religion.
All
as
right
well?
then. Does that work for you then?
Yes.
All right then, that's sufficient.
Okay.
You don't have to make a big mystery out of it.
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
Does that help you then, dear?
Very much so.
All right then, thank you.
Thank you so much.
There's that noise again.
The clapping for ourselves. Hello, Willa.
Good day to you,
Good
dear.
day. I'd like to share my energy with you, but with all due respect, may I please speak to Bashar?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And good day to you.
Hello, Bashar. I share my energy with you also. I have a couple of subjects to talk about, one being the soul, but the other one being the secrets that the U.S. presidents are keeping, and I'll begin with that. Now, and it has to do with the project you have us working on, sending a postcard for 90 days to the president about
Disclosure.
disclosure, exactly. I know it is believed that the presidents were aware of the existence of ETs since the time of Truman. And I would like more of an understanding of what the big issue is about keeping this big secret.
Well, you have to realize that at the time, there was a lot of fear and a lot of paranoia, and you had just come out of what you would call a world war, yes?
Yes.
Therefore, it was simply deemed that the populace couldn't handle something that large at that time because they had yet to really integrate and assimilate the effects of the war into society. But a plan was made to, over time, release the information. Now, other people sort of got a hold of that and had a difference of opinion about whether that should be released or not, and eventually they came to be the ones that would be in power and control that information. Because then it became an issue of keeping the information from others, especially the technological information, so that they would perceive that others would not have a technological advantage over others.
Is it true that Eisenhower met with them and made a deal for to allow ET presence for the sharing of their technology?
Yes.
And talking about President Kennedy. Now,
Yes.
Kennedy, there was a Cold War going on, and Kennedy and Russia were concerned because the radar could not distinguish the ETs from, their different missiles, and they didn't want to start a war accidentally.
Yes, we understand how our ships work.
Yeah. But we couldn't identify you, and so we didn't want to think the U.S. was
UFO.
right. At any rate, he he put through an order to have our information shared with the Russians in order that we would not make this accidental war. However, he was killed before
Yes.
the order was
In the reality you understand now.
exactly. That's
But
my
in another
next.
reality, no.
What happened in the other reality where he did not die?
He revealed the information, but in that reality, the information was revealed too soon and actually did cause a breakdown of your society, for which he was then killed 5 years later because he was blamed for it.
I see.
Because your people were not ready for the information. They didn't know how to integrate it because they had never been prepared properly to integrate the information of our extraterrestrial presence. Now, of course, there are other parallel realities where everything went just fine.
I see.
But that was the reality, just to speak linearly for a moment, that was the reality that was immediately preceding the history that you all changed to have him die before he was capable of revealing the information so your society would not collapse. However, there were still ripples from the reality in which he was killed later in 1968, and those ripples that entered your reality as you know it now and your history as you know it now was responsible for the assassination of his brother and the individual known as Martin Luther King.
So
You see how these things overlap.
yes, but I'm trying to get clarity. I think what I'm hearing you say
Yes.
is that Kennedy, his brother, and Martin Luther King were killed so that this information would not come out
The original president, yes, not the others.
in the other realities. Oh, the original, you're just saying Kennedy?
Just JFK,
Okay.
as you know him.
Okay, because I thought I heard you say Robert also.
The reflection from the old reality where JFK was killed in 1968 still existed as a ripple in the new reality, and that ripple caused the idea of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King to then be assassinated. It was, in a sense, a remnant or a residue from the old timeline.
I see.
Do you understand?
I think so.
Because you see, your history changes all the time. You think it's static. It's not. It's dynamic. But you only remember the history that you've recently created as if that's always been your history and have no real memory of the other history that might have actually been here 5 minutes ago, where you might have had a completely different reality, but as a consensus agreed to shift that history. So now you may have a completely different history, even though history by definition will seem to have always been the history you had, even though it wasn't.
Okay.
These things are dynamic, not static. This is what you begin to understand when you learn to perceive things multidimensionally.
So, having said that, there
Yes.
must be realities in which we already have had first contact
Absolutely.
and continued
And
beyond.
that's what you're shifting toward. If you stay in the vibration that is representative of that reality, because remember, you never change the world you're on. You change your vibration and you shift yourself to other versions of Earth that are already more reflective of the change you made within yourself. The world you were on still remains the same and never changes. Because you're changing billions of times a second right now, even to create the side effect you call time and space. So you're navigating through a series of versions of Earth, like frames on a film strip, navigating through that timeline, but you're always moving through a different version, a different parallel version of Earth. And you navigate more and more in the direction of whatever your strongest state of being vibration is. That's what guides you. That's your rudder.
Okay.
And it is the wind in your sail.
So, if I am already following my excitement to the best of my ability without expected outcomes,
Then
et
you
cetera,
are
et cetera.
navigating along a series of timelines that will ultimately allow you to experience only those versions of Earth that are more and more and more reflective of the reality you prefer based on the state of being you prefer.
So that I will eventually get into these other realities in which there is contact and life has progressed from there with the ETs.
Yes, if you allow yourself to continue in each moment to recreate the vibration of your preference. That will be one of the things contained within it, because that's one of the things that is contained within the definition of your excitement, as it is with ours.
I see.
That's how
Okay.
it works.
So you are helping us get there.
By giving you this information and seeing what you do with it and how much of it you absorb, you then make the change in your own frequency that brings you closer and closer and closer to the vibration of contact. Yes.
Okay.
Not that you have to.
Right. Right. Well,
But if you do, then you are accepting the vibration of contact more and more into your being. Yes,
Okay.
that's what this exchange is all about. This is one of the protocols of how we do first contact. We give you the option to choose based on the information we share as to whether you actually want to adopt that information or not and have contact or not. It's always left up to you.
Mm-hmm. So that those of us who are proceeding along with that 90-day experiment are expressing the fact we want to get into this
That
other
it
reality.
is a reflection of your passion, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That it is part of the definition
Okay.
of the reality that you prefer, yes.
Okay. These next two are probably not relative to, but I'll ask them anyway.
Oh, all
So
right.
Ronald Reagan, who had experienced ET, he had seen him. Is it true that he took Jackie Gleason, his friend, and they observed some things?
Yes.
Okay. And also, what happened when Admiral Byrd went to the Antarctic to explore some activity that was reported there? What happened?
Some members encountered a certain kind of energy portal or vortex that allowed them to experience a shift to another dimension of reality temporarily.
Okay, so Byrd was in another reality, but he came back
Yes.
to ours.
Yes,
I see.
so to speak.
So, okay.
Because again, everything is actually new, but in the way that you mean it linearly, that was the effect, yes, that you perceived.
Okay. When
But
Jimmy,
again, remember, it wasn't the same person.
oh, it wasn't the same Admiral Byrd, you're saying?
Because every second is a new Admiral Byrd, just like every second
Right.
is a new you.
Exactly.
We
Okay.
mean this quite literally.
Yes, I know that.
All
Yes.
right.
Okay. Now, when President Carter was given the information, he was given a briefing about the ET situation.
Yes.
Why did he become so emotional and actually even put his head on his desk and cried? What was so critical about the information that he was given that caused him to react like that?
We have given you the story of the Greys. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah. No, wait a minute. Wait. I'm not sure. Please give me a synopsis.
Do you understand that the Grey civilization, those beings that you consider to be those diminutive gray aliens,
Okay.
are actually mutated humans from a parallel version of Earth, who destroyed their version of Earth
Okay.
and mutated themselves in that way in order to survive, thus tunneling into other parallel realities to use viable human DNA, since they could no longer reproduce, to create our hybrid societies, which then allowed them to perpetuate their culture. You got that much?
Yes.
All right. The information is that you were heading down the same path. Do you understand?
Destroying ourselves again?
Yes,
I
and
see.
actually going to replicate that history in your own reality and eventually become Greys yourselves if you continued down that destructive path.
So, have we changed our path?
Some of you have, some of you haven't.
Okay. Why is it that the CIA is controlling and holding back all of the information?
The CIA isn't.
It isn't?
No, it's a
Okay.
different organization altogether that most of you have no awareness of.
Can you
It
say?
has gone by various names, but still most of you are really not aware of it.
Oh, what do you call it?
We don't call it anything
What do you
because
think
we
we
don't
call it?
focus on it.
Oh, okay. So you don't want to tell me what it is, so I won't focus on it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Why has why have we gone back to the atomic bomb to then start our transitioning in this reality?
What are you talking about?
Well, isn't it true that the transition began basically when the atomic bomb was dropped?
But what do you mean by going back to it?
That we are changing, that we are, our technologies are changing, we're growing, we're realizing different things.
Yes, but what are you asking?
Why did the timeline start? What was so important about the dropping of the atomic bomb that
Well, it
started
showed
the
you
transition?
what the effects would be and allowed you to understand whether or not you really wanted to continue down that path.
I see. Okay, so that was to give us a picture of what could happen if we keep going where we're going.
Yes.
Therefore, all of if the world tries not
Yes.
to drop
However,
another one.
However, it's been many, many years since that idea of global thermonuclear war would actually be possible. Because it has also been demonstrated by many beings from other civilizations that you would not be allowed to launch such a war. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have isolated nuclear strike here and there, terrorist acts and so forth. But global nuclear war, no, because it will not be allowed. Because a global thermonuclear war would rip through the fabric of different space-time dimensions and affect more than just you.
Right.
So your military has been shown many, many times by different space vehicles of extraterrestrial origin hovering over your missile silos that we have the ability to completely scramble and erase your launch codes.
Yes.
This has
We are
been
aware.
shown many times.
Yes.
So global nuclear war is not in the cards for you.
Okay. The
anymore.
machines just don't work. The buttons don't work when you're
The missiles won't
won't
launch.
go. Yes. Another concern is that the media, the motion picture industry right now, when we're talking about, open contact and stuff like that, the movies that are coming out, they're like Colony or whatever, they're showing the fact that there is contact, but they're fear-based, and that concerns me because we don't want to have a fear-based society.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, that those are the ones you gravitate to instead of the ones that give you a positive message?
Right. And they're so fear-based.
No, do you understand what I'm telling you?
No. I don't. Actually, to tell you the truth, I only saw a commercial of the Colony, but I haven't.
But you're focused on it.
I'm asking the question about it, yeah, because I want to understand, is there a force working against?
Those that will gravitate to that will gravitate to that. Those that won't.
I see.
Choose what you prefer,
Thank you.
vibrationally speaking.
And that is exactly what I wanted
There
to hear.
is a contact film that exists right now in your society that actually will give you a much better idea of the depth of what a real interaction with an extraterrestrial civilization would be like. It's called Arrival.
Arrival. Okay. It's in the theaters? Thank you.
Right now.
Right now, great. I will look at that. When
Allow your energy and your vibration to align
Okay.
with ideas and stories like that instead.
Okay.
And that will make all the difference.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on what you typically would call conspiracies.
Okay.
Because that will take you down a path I guarantee you do not want to walk down.
Right.
And you must understand, as we have said before, the beings that you are on your planet assigning great power to don't have as much power as they would like you to believe they have. But they do control media in a way to make you think they do. So don't play the game of falling into what they want you to believe they're able to do that they're actually not able to do.
Okay. Okay,
So
thank
don't
you.
play their game.
Thank you for that advice.
You are welcome.
On the subject of the soul,
Yes.
I know the soul leaves the body
Not really.
well, at death.
I know that that's the experience in the way you have it from a linear perspective, but it's more just like your consciousness expanding beyond the physical focus because your soul is not in your body. It's actually more accurate to say that your body is in your soul because it's a
Okay.
crystallization of focus that happens within your consciousness, which includes the soul and the oversoul and many other levels of your being.
Okay, so when we are created, when the energy, the consciousness, and the physicality is created, at what point does
Consciousness has always existed.
and is
Within a time frame, it appears as if your body is being created. From within a time frame, it
Okay.
appears that you have a beginning and a middle and an end.
right?
But in terms of existence, there's no such thing. It all exists at once.
In that what it appears in the physical world,
Yes.
and you're born,
Yes.
at what point does the soul enter?
49 days.
From conception?
Yes. Because that's
49
when
days.
the brain structures that are capable of processing or expressing the idea of the consciousness in the way that you would consider to be relevant actually form
49 days.
on 49 days in, yes.
Okay. Well, I thank you for all of this
And by the way,
Yes, sir.
even often up to the age of 7, there may still be what you would consider to be a very loose connection.
Right. I have heard that.
It doesn't really crystallize solidly until, for most people, about the age of 7 on your planet.
And that's why children have memories, right?
They are connecting to things more purely through the spirit realm and not forgetting as much of who they really are as a greater being.
Yes. Okay. Well, I thank you for your time. And
It
you-
has been a timeless experience.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
So grateful for this interaction today.
As are we, in deep appreciation of all the interactions that we have with each and every one of you.
And I'm more grateful because it was so synchronized that most of my questions were just answered.
Thank you for your synchronicity.
But I still have a few.
That's all right.
On the subject of parallel realities that you were just talking
Yes,
about.
parallel reality.
Yes. And you were talking about the ripples, I mean, the effects of the other realities ripple into the other reality.
Because of the collective consciousness creating senses of continuity that connect those things together, yes.
So let's say, for example, this is where I need clarification.
Yes.
Let's say in this reality that I'm focused in, I'm afraid of swimming.
Yes.
Does that mean that there's a possibility that in a different reality, I had an experience?
That version of you might have had an experience that you're connecting to play out and use that experience to explore whatever themes you're exploring here. Because somehow you believe that making that connection to that experience will serve you. Yes.
Okay. So then, how
Yes.
do I know that? How would I know that that specific thing is something that's serving me?
Well, again, it serves you because it puts you in touch with the idea that you have a belief that is generating the fear.
Oh, I see.
And you use the fear as a messenger to let you know you have a belief you're unaware of. So sometimes you will make these connections to generate fear that will then reveal to you certain beliefs you didn't know existed within the matrix of your consciousness. Therefore, it's doing you the service of pointing them out like a spotlight. And then you can ask the question, oh, what would I have to believe is true in order to experience this fear? And then you can let the fear go because it's done its job. But you will connect sometimes to other realities that might be exploring similar themes, but have had an experience that will induce fear in you to point out a similar belief system within yourself.
I see.
That's one way to use parallel reality connections to your advantage.
So the experience or the purpose of shape-shifting, does
Yes.
that also help us experience more different
Of course.
energies then?
Because
or?
once you learn the idea of shape-shifting and you shift into a form that is different than what you think of your natural form, you're going to start to know what that form knows, think like that form thinks, behave like that form behaves, and you're going to learn a lot that way. You can even match a frequency. Now, we've talked about different ways of doing this because this is the basis of telepathy, that you don't read another person's mind, but you operate on a similar wavelength and have the same thoughts at the same time synchronistically. That's what telepathy actually is. So the idea of shape-shifting is a further demonstration of that by actually becoming, in a sense, a version of them that is almost identical physiologically by taking on a parallel reality reflection that makes you look like a twin of someone, and then you can understand them completely because you are being a version of them and you know exactly what they're thinking and you know exactly how they feel because you are a version of them. So it's a way to learn how to empathize, connect, have compassion, and learn many things from a different point of view. It's the ultimate way to walk in someone else's shoes by actually becoming them.
Do we actually do that unconsciously here and there, or we
Here
haven't?
and there, yes, you can, but you simply don't express it in the way that shapeshifters do, physiologically.
Oh, I see. So it's the consciousness that's basically experiencing that? It's the
Yes.
experience of the consciousness.
Yes. You're just
Physical.
adapting a reflection and imagining the reflection to actually be your reflection so that you see yourself as something else. And then you will think, feel, and do the things that something else does.
Okay, great.
It's a very, very strong way to learn about the world, about reality, about the universe, about the multiverse.
Very
Yes?
nice. Yes.
Very exciting.
It
That's
is.
why it's exciting to go through the 5 levels of mastery, one of the reasons anyway. Does that help you?
Yes, it does.
Anything else?
Yes. I know in the past channelings, you have mentioned that I know everything changes, but there is a probability of 88% of a series of events
At the
happening
time of
at
the
a-
reading, that may be so.
Yes.
But as soon as the reading is done, the probabilities may change, especially because you've been given the information of what the reading was, which can change the reading. As I said, these things aren't static, they're dynamic. There's no such thing as a prediction of the future. There's only a sensing of the energy that exists at the moment the prediction is made, and being aware of what the energy is, depending upon what you want to do with the information you're given, can change the energy and change the probability right at that moment. A prediction being made can instantly render itself obsolete if you don't prefer what the prediction said.
So what changed the course of many things possibly was the knowledge of knowing the events, I mean the probabilities, and then focusing it on a different level?
Yes, because
that-
if you hear a certain prediction about what the energy is at that moment, and it's not something you prefer, you might start changing the energy by doing different things. Or if it is what you prefer, you might reinforce it and allow it to continue to manifest. But these things happen almost instantaneously in a variety of ways, and it depends upon the individuals and the groups and the mass consensus as to exactly what part of it any one of you might experience, if it's relevant for you to continue to experience it or not.
So is it probable then many events that were probable at that time has already changed?
Yes, in a variety of ways. Now, certainly, one that had a lot of momentum behind it, and what you're now seeing the results of, is that we told you that everything would change in the fall of 2016. And certainly you see a lot of evidence of that right now. That's an overall energy that was unlikely to change because the probability was so high. But there are many different ways to interpret the after effects and many different ways to experience the after effects. You can use any of those after effects to your advantage if you maintain a positive state of being.
So can we say that, let's say, in my reality, my president would be a different president than someone else's?
It
or?
most likely won't need to be that extreme. The idea that would be the path of least resistance is to not care who the president is and just use the vibrations to your advantage in whatever way you can, similar to the analogy we already shared with all of you, which we will repeat again now. You could say by definition that you felt you were traveling in a boat down a very placid stream and everything was smooth and everything was going along, and now suddenly you're in the middle of rapids. But the point is, if you maintain the positive definition and maintain your balance and learn how to ride the rapids, the advantage you can get out of the rapids is that you get downstream much faster. So you can take advantage of the disconnection and the breaking of the status quo and the disorientation by learning how to balance in that new reality of rapids so that it would actually be capable of being used to your advantage and accelerating you faster than the placid stream would ever have. That's how you respond to change. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances of the change are, you can still take advantage of it in a positive way as befits what you prefer if you understand that you have the ability to do that.
Of course, I use the president as an example, but I like your example better. Thank you.
I'm not saying that certain things like that can't suddenly appear to change, but they are usually unnecessary because you created this reality for a reason. You're sharing in it for a reason. It's that all of you have different reasons, but you can use it for your reasons. Yes?
Yes.
As we said recently, one of the most important things this did is actually break you from your complacency, break you from the status quo. Once you are broken from the status quo, almost anything is possible. To put it colloquially, in your mind you can go, well, if that can happen, anything is possible, I guess. So now it opens you up into a state of disorientation so that you can now make it easier to reorient to the reality that you prefer. And in that sense, what has happened has done you a favor. Take advantage of it. Yes?
Yes.
Does that help you?
Yeah. The Nesara project, or
Define.
it's a contract. I've read about it, that after all the changes, there's going to be a contract that serves all.
Every one of you have your own relationship to the mass consensus agreement. It's up to you to decide what's true for you and act accordingly.
That was my next question, actually. How do we discern between all the information
Do you
that's
not
out there?
understand what it is that excites you, what your passion is?
Yes.
That's all it takes. That's the formula. Don't get caught up in all of the different pieces of information. You get to decide what's true for you and act on your highest passion to the best you're able with no insistence on the outcome. That's all you need to do to stay on course, to have your hand firmly on the tiller of the rudder, to guide you in the direction of the reality that you prefer. That's all it takes, is just acting on that formula in the most precise ways you can. That's it.
On the same note.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Hey, okay. So, the first question I have when you were talking about how, you know, how we ultimately create reality on one level?
Yes,
How-
I do know that.
Yes. So then how do you then connect like what you agree with on a collective
I just told you.
just now?
Just now, I just told you, you act on your highest passion. When we talk about the fact that that's the formula, what part of that do you not understand? That's the formula. There is no other formula that we will give you to answer a question in the manner that you've asked it.
Okay.
That's the formula that allows you to engage with the mass consensus agreement in the way that works best for you, being your part of the mass consensus agreement.
Gotcha.
Does that make more sense
Yep,
now?
that makes sense.
You're being your puzzle piece in the shape you were made to be. If you try to be a shape you weren't made to be, you won't fit in the puzzle and you won't create the big picture that supports all the pieces. So the more of you simply allow yourselves to be the puzzle piece the way you were shaped to be, then when you are all the puzzle pieces you were made to be, you will all fit perfectly. The big picture will appear and it will sustain and support all the pieces that make it up. It's only when you try to be a shape you're not that the whole picture can't come together. Does that explain it?
Yes.
Anything else?
Well, the other thing I just wanted to share with you
Yes.
is the biggest thing that I was feeling really stuck in just trusting the process of following my excitement.
Oh, all right. How
The-
exciting for you.
But what made a huge difference for me has been listening to your whole talk about how to use your higher mind.
All right. Well, thank you for making a difference for yourself.
Thank
Yes.
you. But
We are happy to share the information, but it won't really matter unless you decide to apply it. So we thank you and appreciate and congratulate you for making the difference for yourself by applying it.
Well, thank you. It really has made a difference, and
Of course.
I've seen it actually allow more things to synchronistically show up.
There will come a day, here's another prediction. There will come a day when finally you actually, all of you, won't be surprised that when you change your understanding, that things will actually change. Right now, many of you still sound surprised. Hey, I did this and it worked. What do you know? Yes, we know. That's how it works. It really is just an instruction manual we're giving you for how the machine works. That's all. So don't be so surprised that when you flip the switch, the light comes on. Ooh, how did that happen? I flipped this switch like Bashar suggested, and oh, the light came on just like he suggested. It's a miracle. No, it's just how it works.
But
It's
Bashar,
just physics.
How come it seems like sometimes you think you're trying something, but then it doesn't work?
Because you think you're trying it
Okay.
instead of actually doing it.
Doing it, okay.
There is a big difference. between making it, in a sense, theoretical and really making it your truth, what you know to be true.
Yes.
Big difference.
Gotcha.
Vibrational difference that may seem very, very small can actually create a completely different reality experience.
I noticed.
Because the vibrations are very fine-grained, and the slightest difference is an entirely different reality.
I noticed.
There you go again. See? I noticed. Yes.
Like a huge
Yes.
shift.
As we have given you the analogy, because now things have accelerated to the point where the tiniest thing that is out of alignment will freeze the entire experience until you clean out that speck of dust. And that cleaning out of that one speck of dust can make all the difference in your experience and create an entirely different experience.
Is that for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
No, except for you.
No. I feel that way completely.
All right.
Bashar,
Yes.
can I talk to Willa about my hybrid kids?
Yes, you can talk to her about your hybrid kids, although I have to say, she may not necessarily know as much about your children as I will.
Oh, okay. Then
So would you still like to speak with her?
no. I'll talk to you. Can you just give me whatever they want to share with me that would help me connect with them? Or
You may use the image of the spiral seeds in the center of a sunflower and meditate upon that image, and you will find that it will put you in the vibrational state to be able to receive clearer communications in your bond with them.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
Hello there.
And to you, good day.
Good day. So I carry a few questions.
Yes.
One for you. Could you elaborate on relevance?
Yes. Many people are looking to create certain experiences in their lives, but only certain experiences are relevant for the theme that you may have chosen to explore. Now, nothing is impossible. All things are possible. But based on the fact that you chose to explore a certain theme as the person you are, there are not many things that are necessarily relevant or probable for that theme. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because if you stepped outside of it, you wouldn't be exploring the theme anymore. So you will stay within your relevance in terms of what you manifest. Now, that can still be very broad and still be very different than what you typically experience in your reality, especially in this day and age. There are many more things that you are aware you could be doing than in the past you might have thought were even possible at all. But you will still never step beyond the level of probable relevance into what is possible if it's not relevant. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, did that answer the question sufficiently?
Yes, and I had a follow-up question to that, and
Yes.
that is, how can we discern that which is more relevant in our life, but it's the formula, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Because when you do that, you're taking advantage of the fact that there's already a complete toolkit there, one of the tools being synchronicity, that brings you what you need and nothing else. And that's how you tell. What happens in your life is what you need. It doesn't give you impossible choices. It gives you relevant ones. Because what would be the point of giving you something that's not relevant? Synchronicity doesn't operate that way. If it did, it wouldn't be synchronicity. Make sense?
So the more we develop the ability to create more synchronicities, or they happen regardless, but just being able to see them.
Yes. The more aware
it's-
you become of how to discern the difference, because what you're being given is what's relevant. You may have to take yourself through a process to understand exactly how it's relevant, but you know from the get-go that what comes into your life must be relevant or it wouldn't be there. It doesn't mean you have to prefer it. It doesn't even mean you have to wind up doing it, but what is there for a relevant reason. If you use it that way, you'll get the relevance out of it.
Great.
Make sense?
Yes.
All
So
right.
can I speak to Willa?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Give us a moment. All right, what's on your mind then?
Hi, good. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it is my pleasure to do so. Thank you as well. We assume it is yours.
Yes, absolutely.
All right then. What would you like to chat about?
Earlier, you were describing that the sage correlates to the fourth law. The fourth law being
Well,
which
no, I wasn't doing that. That was the Bashar.
That was the Bashar.
But I understand what you're
Okay.
saying, and I certainly agree with it.
Okay, great. And what was said was that the sage will put out a vibe, and whatever gets created, they will project it, magnify it, and project it to others. Was that the
In
understanding?
a way that allows the others to be willing to share the experience, yes. Because they're actually projecting a vibration, not only of the parallel reality, but also of the space-time vibration that goes along with it, that will induce those that are willing to be induced to experience the different reality that the sage is manifesting for themselves. And so the others being willing to match that frequency will also have the experience that such things are manifesting in their reality as well, because they are being induced to connect to that parallel reality that the sage is presenting a vibration of to them.
So the sage projecting will never do it in a way where it takes away from the free will of the others.
Of course, if they did that, then they wouldn't be a sage.
All right, great. You were speaking about the elements earlier?
No, the elementals.
The elementals.
Elements are different, you know.
Yes.
Elementals are the beings.
Are elementals attracted to gardens, or do
Many of them
gardens-
are, yes. Remember, they are nature spirits. Therefore, they will have their own communion with the vibrational consciousness of things like plants and so forth. They can commune with them.
And does the fact that there's life in the plant life, living
There's
vibration,
life in everything.
Okay.
Even a rock is life, just not as you know it.
Okay. So do gardens themselves, the plant life, make it easier for us to perceive them?
They are giving everything they need to give. You're always being given everything that you need to be given. It's about paying attention to what you're being given more precisely. Because no more can be given to you than is being given. Nothing is held back from you. You have to open up and recognize what it is you're already being given. It's on your end.
Okay, great.
Now, that doesn't mean that you will be given things that are not appropriate for you to be given.
Appropriate being another word for relevance?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Is inherent in the name Hillicrissing, is inherent in there she who crosses hills?
It is simply from the idea of an evolvement of the willow tree and the helichrysum plant.
Helichrysum plant. Okay. Not aware.
But I have crossed many hills
All right.
in my time.
Okay. The fact that you're telling us more about the elementals, do they get excited about that? Do they
Some of them
prefer
do.
that?
Some of them don't. Some of them don't care at all.
Okay.
It just depends. Because they are their own beings, and they have their own preferences as well. And they have their own understanding of what it is that they need to do and not do in life, and who they need to and not connect to in life as well.
In the Stone Speakers, Bashar spoke about the fact that we can get information from them. We can actually communicate with stones.
Absolutely. As I said, it's all alive in a different way.
So the fact that we can connect with them and get information from them, do stone elements speak to the elementals?
Elementals.
Do the stones speak to the elementals? And if they do, what kind of communication
The
do they have?
stones are always speaking. The elementals are those that have the ability to know that and hear that, yes.
And what do they
Everything
share?
is always speaking, in a sense.
So what do they share amongst each other?
The stones and the elementals?
Yes.
Well, of course, it'll depend upon the elemental, and it'll depend upon the stone. So, an example of such a communication might be that an elemental, let us say, such as a puka. You understand?
I don't know what a puka is. No.
A puka is an elemental shapeshifter that sometimes is known to be a little bit mischievous. What you might call a trickster energy.
Okay.
You follow?
Familiar with this, yes.
Then the idea is that the puka might communicate with a stone and might agree with the stone to play a certain trick on a person by placing the stone in a spot and then placing the stone in another spot without the person knowing it, so that the person wonders where the stone went. And they will play this game over and over and over, and they will know that even though they are being mischievous about it and making the person seem a little bit confused, they also know on another level that being the trickster, they are training that person's consciousness to be able to look at things in a different way and expand their ability to find the stone, not by looking from one place to another, but by looking more broadly. So the stone and the puka might play that game together.
Okay.
That's just one example.
Okay. I think that's it. That's all I have. So
All
I
right,
appreciate
then
it.
thank you
Thank you for being here.
the chat. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello.
And good day to you, dearie.
Good day. May I speak to Bashar?
Absolutely. Give us a moment then, would you?
Sure.
All right then. Yes.
How do you, thank you, by the way. How do you differentiate or balance following the formula and doing something because it's your highest excitement and something that's maybe not necessarily healthy for your body in the physical realm, or what's looked
Well,
at as
again,
unhealthy?
what's the definition that you're calling your excitement? Is it really a true definition of your excitement, or is it an expression of anxiety? Because if you're really honest within yourself, you can tell the difference between your true excitement and your anxiety that you might be glossing over because you don't want to face what it might be showing you.
How do you figure that out?
Can't you tell the difference between when you're anxious and when you're excited?
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. If I tell you that I'm about to give you an ice cream cone, are you excited or anxious?
Excited.
If I tell you that a great pit is about to open under your feet and you're going to fall 1,000 feet onto some spikes, are you excited or anxious?
Anxious. I think those were the answers to those questions.
But do you feel the difference?
Maybe. I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah.
So you are just as excited about falling onto spikes as you are about receiving an ice cream
It's
cone.
more of just like an acceptance of it. I don't know how to.
Acceptance is a different idea, a very different idea. You can understand how to neutralize these things, and that may be what you're doing. And that may be right now why you can't tell the difference, is because you're actually exploring the concept of neutrality.
Okay.
And that's all right.
That makes
Because that's a
sense.
limbo state. As we said, you're breaking from status quo. One of the symptoms is to go into a limbo state and explore the concept of balance and neutrality. And in that state, it may not be relevant for you to tell the difference right now. But when you emerge from that state and recrystallize yourself, you'll know the difference. When it is important for you to know, you will know. In your life, at some times, you must have been able to tell the difference between excitement and anxiety, yes? In certain circumstances in your life?
Yes.
And it was clear what the difference was then?
Yes.
It will be clear again. But you may simply be going through a neutralizing state at the moment, which is part of the process of changing and elevating your consciousness, and that's all right.
That's okay.
Of course.
And if you have compassion towards someone that, like a family member, how do
Yes.
you get them to receive something?
You
that
can't get them to receive anything. You give off the vibration and allow them to choose to match it or not.
So
Allowance is the key.
how do you deal with it if they're not accepting that and you're sensitive?
Then you're
to
not
it?
being allowing, are you? Do you want people to allow you to be who you prefer to be?
Yes.
Then you have to allow others to choose to be who they prefer to be, even if it's not vibrationally compatible with what you prefer, don't you?
Yes.
Because if you don't allow them to choose, why should they allow you to choose?
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
You're only going to get a reflection of something you don't prefer, not being allowed to choose who you prefer to be. So, if you want to allow yourself to be who you prefer to be, you must be in the vibration of allowance, and that means you need to allow everyone else to choose, regardless of whether it's something that is vibrationally compatible with what you prefer or not. Because again, remember, everyone is an infinite, eternal, indestructible being. Who cares if they choose or don't choose it in this life?
Right.
Yes?
So if you are in this neutrality state and you're reaching this new sense of consciousness, how do you then reach the next, like, be in touch with that higher, that
You
next
keep
step?
acting on the formula to the best of your ability. You keep discovering what beliefs within you are no longer relevant and let them go. You keep streamlining yourself.
Okay. And what's the significance of 33?
Well, there are many significances to that particular frequency threshold. It is a time of great transformation in general, representative of a change in life, where you're going from a form of childhood into a more mature state, vibrationally. But it is a very transformational idea. But it is also a synchronous idea. Any kind of numbers or colors or anything that you use as a symbol to repeat that way will simply be road markers to let you know that when it pops up in your synchronicity, you're in the correct vibration at that time. You're in alignment with the path that you are.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Tadea.
Nania! What's going to come out of your mouth today?
Well, we're getting the microphone adjusted here. Let's see. Well, maybe today I should talk to Willa first.
All right, then, give us a moment.
All right.
If you Willa.
Yeah.
Good day to you, dearie.
Good day. It's wonderful to make your acquaintance in a deeper way.
And yours as well, as always. What would you like to chat about?
I think there's lots of curiosity about you, that these are questions that have come through our listeners that are
Curiosity
remotely...
about me?
Yes.
Whatever for. I'm just an ordinary hybrid who experiences some extraordinary things. What could be curious about that?
I think it's very interesting.
Oh, all right then.
So one of the questions that came through was, can you tell us a little bit about what your day is like?
Which day would that be?
Any day that you like.
All right then. There will be days when I will cross the Marrowbone Bridge outside Port Dublin and wander through the streets and allow myself to pick up on the vibrations of the different humans and hybrids and elementals and xenos that may be walking around through the Port Dublin on that day. And then I may sit myself down on the edge of the bridge and dangle my feet high above the canal that runs beneath. And I may absorb and let myself drift in those vibrations for a while. Then I may get up and cross the bridge back into the yew forest that is nearby, full of the yew trees and ash trees that I have come to know so well. And then I may allow myself to merge into the vibrations and communicate with those beings for a while. And I may pick up and absorb what they have to say and carry that with me back across the bridge in a variety of ways, and may decide to go off through one of the shaddocks to a different place, either in Ireland or somewhere else in the world. And I may then meet others as well, and I may decide to play some games with some of my friends. It can be that, and it can be very different than that. Anything else you would like to know then?
It's kind of fascinating because that's how I spend the day sometimes.
Well, many of you are beginning to take on these qualities in preparation for, again, what will be experienced in a slightly different way, but from which now you're forming the basis to have those experiences in a more magnified way. Yes.
I mean, speaking to or communicating with animals and other species
Yes.
is so amazingly fun.
I would heartily agree with that.
I mean, it's such a driving aspect of being here on Earth, you know, because they're so fascinating. It's like every creature has its own perspective, its own personality.
That it does.
And they're in so many ways so magical because they have attributes that are so vastly different from ours.
Absolutely, and those are what we learn from about the greater being that we are, that contains it all, so that it gets reflected to us by all those other beings. It shows us more of who and what we are.
So it's really exciting for those of us that that's sort of a channel of learning or a path of excitement in a process of just becoming more and more of ourselves.
I would agree with
It's
that.
just so exciting that when you present this as a sort of ascension type model, I guess I'd call it, or
All right, then,
template,
yes, we
a
understand
type
the
of,
reference.
that's very exciting.
Yes, it is.
I think that traditionally the ideas of becoming more of yourself involves more esoteric kinds of things, like studying a certain modality or meditation, or, as opposed to the fun idea of just having communication with species that are different from your own.
Well, you can do both.
Yes. Okay. Is there anything you would like to suggest as far as?
Not at the moment, dear.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like to ask?
Okay. I think that in regards to that idea of connecting with you, people have asked questions about how to learn from you or ways to connect with you, and wanted to know, is there a phone number that you'd like to
I
describe?
don't have a telephone, dear.
Well, an image, a phone number.
They can think of a fox.
Foxes are like the best.
A red fox with a white chest, black feet, black tips on its ears, and a black tip on its tail.
I mean, just learning a little bit more about foxes, they're like the most beautiful cross between cats and dogs in a sense. And they purr. And they're amazingly generous and beautiful and smart. And so those are such lovely characteristics that perhaps haven't always been realized by our society.
All right, well then it would be about time to realize it. But you can think of that fox, and the vibration is similar enough to me
Okay.
that you can tap in to some degree. Now again, it won't be me having chats with you all the time. It'll be, in many ways, your own higher mind, but you'll take on my qualities, and you'll be able to download information that would be relevant to the kind of information I'd be likely to be sharing with you. You ken what I'm saying?
Yes. Can you tell us a little more about what function cryptics perform in your society?
Well, it can be many. But again, the primary idea is to ground the energies of higher planes into the earth in such a way that you can experience those energies. And the vibration of the cryptics can allow for others to experience those energies in a way that will allow their roots to be deep and not get uprooted by the forces of those energies that you may not be as familiar with when you first enter those realms. So they act as a very anchoring and grounding influence for us all. Does that help?
Yes, it just sort of opens the door to the idea that as you go deeper and deeper into these communications with other perspectives that are non-human.
Well, as well, then they bring the information of the natural world and are, as you would say, very practiced at communicating with elementals and trees and flowers and rocks and bees and all sorts of things, so they can bring the richness of the intelligence and the richness of the information that exists in the world to a much sharper focus for all.
Yeah, because really what you're saying is that by choosing to be on this planet, the greatest primer of all is the one that comes from the earth itself and the creatures on it and the systems that are on it.
And everything is a natural extension of that collective consciousness. And so in that way, sometimes what you'd call a nickname for a cryptic would be a tapestry.
Do you want to share more about how the Nocturnals also perform a service in your society?
Well, again, they bring the knowledge of the parallel realities very sharply to bear, and they also allow one to get in touch with the deeper emotional realms in a variety of ways, which can be a very heady process for many. And therefore, they can act as guidance in that way. But also, they themselves, in going through that process, can be very mercurial, because they're exploring the whole idea of the depth of the emotional connections that they may have to other versions of themselves and other realities. It is suddenly like being able to really sit down and have a gathering with all of the different multiple personalities of your being. And attempting to sort them all out can be a little bit confusing at times. So nocturnals sometimes are a little bit mercurial with that, because they don't always necessarily know whether they are talking to you or talking to another version of themselves until they sort it out as they approach the shapeshifter stage.
It's just so interesting how it's like learning how to navigate the dream world in
some
many
senses,
ways.
yes, which is why they are called nocturnal, for they are looking into the secrets of the night and the secrets of the dreams that lead to other dimensions.
And the sage?
Well, you're skipping the shapeshifter.
Oh, sorry, the shapeshifter.
They don't want to be left out.
No, yeah, okay.
But again, they bring the manifestation of the blending of those other aspects of their being into physical reality, so that you can understand that it is more and more that the one is all and the all are one. They are an exemplification of that law in a very physical way. And again, allow the vibration to connect us to all that is in a much stronger way. You have heard the Bashar talk about the idea of the epsilon spheres around his world, yes?
Yes.
That put out a certain vibration that keep them stabilized into synchronism. Well, the shapeshifters, by pulling in the actual manifestations of other parallel realities, will imbue the earth with the idea of more ability to connect to much more of ourselves from the oversoul level. So it enriches us greatly, and all those who choose to partake of that vibration, to tap into the oversoul consciousness in a much, much more crystallized way. Then moving into the sages, as you were wont to ask, will expand that in a very, very full way. You might even equate it to the idea of merging into the vibration of the oversoul of oversouls. And so you're seeing from a much higher perspective, the vibration is there for you to really understand that you are all these things, and that everything is a reflection. What you put out is what you get back. That everything is truly a reflection. Everything is truly a shard of the shattered mirror. That you become that shard in your mind. That you understand that you are standing in the middle of all other shards that are reflecting to you other versions of yourselves, and you can experience this in a very physical and visceral way, especially through the use of the Divinorum, if you know how to handle it properly. Then the Wraith is something else again. We won't go there for now.
It seemed to be coincident with change is the only constant.
Yes. And in a way that you have to be very, very prepared for. In a way that is very rare. Many sages do not go there, and some that have will never go there again. You have to be in a very specific state to bridge those realities in the way that a sage and a wraith exist side by side as a double person, both matter and spirit. It is similar to the idea that the Bashar has talked about being quasi-physical, but it is also a very different experience because it's happening in a different world, in a different way that has a different path and experiences things in the symbols that they need to understand. And so it is something quite different than the way that the Bashar's world experiences quasi-physical reality. It is a very, very, very powerful balancing act, and very few are that balanced. But once you are, it can be extremely rewarding. But you have to also have the absolute flow and balance of communion with the elementals, because they're the ones that actually bridge the physical and the spirit in a very different way. And for a person that is alive to be able to do so is quite an art.
I'm really starting to see how being centered and balanced is such a important requirement of reaching different levels. And even on our level, the idea of great change all at once creates disorientation, like the way everything just changed in the last few weeks.
And if you think that you're disoriented through the changes you're going through, just imagine what the disorientation is like going from a sage to a wraith. Many beings have attempted this, and some have succeeded and some have not, and some have turned into what we call the banshee, the wailing spirit that moans for itself, trapped between the living and the dead.
Yikes.
Now, this again is just another way to experience the self within the all that is, of course, for all are eternal in that way. And there will, in some way, shape, or form, be a transformation that will take place eventually, even for the Banshee. But while the Banshee is the Banshee, there can be many different kinds of experiences that the sage would not necessarily have preferred to experience. And therefore it is a lesson for them in a variety of ways for those that choose to walk that path.
Would it not be just like when a human dies and they believe they're going to go to hell and then they find themselves trapped in some way, and all they have to eventually realize is that when they change their beliefs, they will emerge from that state?
It has a similar aspect, but it is not the same.
It's very intriguing.
They actually, in some senses, in the transition from the sage to the Banshee, are actually opening up what you might call portals to other dimensions and allowing there to actually be overlaps that can be experienced by others around the Banshee in a way to disorient others into realities they are not prepared to enter. They carry with them those rents in the fabric of space and time, as if it is a cloak that they wear. And contact with a Banshee can throw you, as you would say, willy-nilly into another dimensional understanding that you may not be prepared or balanced to receive or process properly.
And how does that align with what Bashar has shared about you have to be the vibration of something? Like, obviously, these are individuals that are at a very accelerated frequency state.
In some senses, yes, and in some senses not.
Really?
Because then they become crystallized and frozen in that state. And it is, in some senses, like what you would consider to be a repeating loop for them.
That's pretty stunning.
Yes, it can be.
And is that part
Nevertheless, you can communicate if you know how with the Banshee, and you can learn much from them. And at this point, we have also learned that there are ways that can help them, but it requires those that have the same kind of marker that I myself possess of the Anu gene. There is something within the Anu gene that can help transform the Banshee back into a mortal sage, or allow them to process themselves and go on into spirit. But it again is something that requires a great art, and it is a rare thing, even in our day. Eventually you will find that it will be something more common, but it is still a rare art in my day.
It certainly shows that having humility with regards to different levels of consciousness is a good idea.
That would be one of the fundamental keys then, to stay in your humility. Yes, we would agree with that. And now we also sense that it might be approaching time for you to have your break and your holotrope meditation, which will be given to you by the Bashar.
Okay.
So please enjoy your break. And it has been the greatest pleasure for us to engage with all of you. And in the spirit of winter, we wish you good relations with the winter spirit and the happiest of your holy days. We thank you and our unconditional love to you all, and allow yourselves to please continue to bake my cookies, for when you come out of your oven, you will be sweet and delicious. So we thank you, and please now enjoy your break. How's it going? Let us continue the transmission in the following way. Please allow yourselves to relax in your chairs, become comfortable. Breathe easily and deeply. And as you allow your lights to dim, your music to come up, just begin to let yourself go. Just begin to drift into the ideas that have been discussed in the transmissions over the past few days, so that you may allow the holotrope to act as a reflective mirror for you and the different levels of your consciousness as it relates to nature, the elementals that Willa has talked about, and primarily the winter spirit as you now approach your solstice. The center of the holotope, as you focus on it, in a relaxed way, can be considered the symbol for the moment of the winter spirit itself, and all the lines that lead from it, and all the patterns that surround it, as all the other elementals, ring after ring, according to the different frequencies and vibrations and abilities of those beings, as they stretch out energetically into nature, blending with it, issuing from it, constantly going to and fro from spirit to matter and matter to spirit, shape-shifting constantly in a cosmic dance of energy and materialism and manifestation and disappearance and spirit. Like ice melting to water and water subliming to steam and steam cooling and falling as snow and ice once again, the cycles of winter, the cycles of the elementals are like a dance, and you may join them in that dance now as you continue to breathe deeply, gently, easily, effortlessly. And understand that while the elementals in their physical form may be interpreted by you as physically dancing from time to time, what's going on the energetic level of their consciousness is quite a different thing that only interprets itself in physical reality as a dance. And why many humans in ancient times sought to simulate those dances as representations of what they could sense was going on higher levels of spirit. Energetically, that translates into your reality as a physical dance, moving around in circles, spinning to and fro, dancing around the center point that orients you to a different frequency, a different perspective, and a different reality. You are all shards of a shattered mirror of the One, the reflections that you feed back to the all that is to allow it to know all the ways that it can be, all the experiences of itself that all of you are throughout creation, throughout existence, in this dance of shards shimmering and glistening, spinning and twirling around like little mirrors, reflecting beams of light to one another that carry information, perspective, knowledge, energy, love and light between all of you in your eternal dance, spinning around the center of existence, around the core of all that is. Sharing your vibrations with the elementals to allow you to begin to crystallize those seeds that have been planted in the soil of your consciousness over the last few days, to allow that seed to blossom, to grow, to stretch forth into the sky, and to sink down deep roots so that you may always be grounded even as you explore the heavens and reach for the stars. And as you go through your own transformations and your own connections to nature, as the Cryptic will do, your own connections to your deepest emotions and connections to the other versions of your being in parallel realities, as the Nocturnal will do. And even as you emulate the vibrations of the other versions of yourselves, as the Shapeshifter will present and do, and even as you allow yourself to adopt the entire realities and the vibrations of other dimensions, as the Sage will do, and even as you allow yourself to exist in the artistic balance of bridging matter and spirit, the physical and the non-physical, allowing yourself to reach into the depths of Source, to allow the blueprint and the template of all that you experience to shift with ease and effortlessness, to mold itself and crystallize itself over and over and over again, melting down in the crucible of your consciousness into liquid form and into steam that then cools and crystallizes and falls again as snow and ice, so that you may participate in the cycles that are expressed by the winter spirit in its own energy, in its own consciousness, and its own connection, not only to nature, but as nature. For nature you are, an expression of it, every bit as the trees, every bit as the rocks, every bit as the birds, every bit as the streams, every bit as the clouds in the sky, every bit as the stars in space. You are nature, an extension and expression of it from higher level energies, doing a dance, spinning around the central core of all that is, little gleaming shards of reflective mirror, reflecting to each other all the different angles of your being, so that you may know yourself as fully as you can. And in this slow, joyful, spinning dance, you feel your heart awakening, blossoming, blooming, expanding. And you feel the dances in all the other realities as they dance with you, spinning and turning, wheels within wheels, gears interlocking from one reality to another, so that you know that whatever you change within yourself here changes everything everywhere. For as you turn one gear, even the smallest bit, all the gears must turn with it. For all the teeth are interlocked and there is no space between them. You are the change. You are the law. You are the structure. You are existence. You are the expression of all that is unique, and yet also fits with all the other unique expressions, forming the whole that supports the pieces as the pieces support the whole. You are the vibration of nature, the elementals, the cryptics, the nocturnals, the shapeshifters, the sages and the wraiths. You are matter and spirit and matter. You are different expressions and reflections of all that is, of the one that everything is made of. You are light, you are dark, you are positive, you are negative, and you are the balance between. For creation is a trinity, not a duality, for there is always the balance point in between. Live within that balance, live within that center, and you will experience the joy of your being as it bursts forth, as the seed breaks through and gives the shoot that rises into the tree and buries its roots deeply in the soil of your home, so that you may stretch as far as you dare to the stars and drink deeply as you dare of the depths of the cool waters of the earth, and as you allow yourself to breathe the clear air of your reality, of your energy, of your being, of your existence. Allow yourselves now to experience the winter spirit in whatever form it may choose to manifest to you out of the holotopic reflection that sits before you. For it is peering at you as you are peering at it, and it is elementally aware of you and sends you its blessings and its joy and its gifts in return for the gifts that you are willing to bestow upon it, so that it may provide you with a beautiful winter tableau that will be the transitional state that unlocks you from one season and carries you to another, where you may blossom anew with a different you, regenerating eternally, infinitely, endlessly, cycles without end, without beginning, as you expand into more of your being. Embrace, invite, allow whatever aspects of the elemental winter spirit that will work for you, that will bless you and embrace you into your home and hearth. Allow it in and sit before your crackling fire, drinking your soothing nectar, and engage in dialogue, in communication. Engage, learn, listen, speak within that dialogue according to the flow that comes and goes, that ebbs and flows between you and the heart of the winter spirit. Allow yourselves to drift and dream. Drift and dream. Drift and dream. And allow yourself to fall as gently as the snow. Each of you a beautiful crystal snowflake, unique like no other, forming a blanket of perfect beauty, perfect serenity, and perfect peace upon the land. Be that snowfall and the vibration of beauty, peace, and love that will allow you to rest and regenerate and be born anew within yourselves. For you contain the seed, and it will bloom. And the sun shall always come. Allow yourselves now in your minds to rest within the winter dream. Be at peace within yourselves. Be easy in your breathing. Be generous in your gifts, and be open to receiving the gifts that all that is always sending to you, so that you may receive them with an open mind and an open heart and an open spirit. And may you be expanded in all the ways that are true for you. Allow yourselves to now just gently continue to drift and breathe and dream in this winter story, and feel the warmth that glows within you to keep you bright and whole. Allow your music to soften. Allow your lights to dim. And keep breathing gently and easily, inhaling the fresh scent of the cool air. And let the seasons change within you according to the time that works best for your truth. Just drift and dream, drift and dream, drift and dream. Our deepest appreciation and our unconditional love to you all. We thank you. Welcome home. Sweet dreams, sweet dreams, sweet dreams.
discover in the deepest, darkest